And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather for Saturday morning, showing lots of IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea, across the southern sea as well. All of the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, across the Gulf, up into Prince William Sound, maybe Resurrection Bay there in the southern Kenai Peninsula, and then in across the southeast coast. VFR over the eastern interior, and a band of IFR here through the central part of the state southward into the western and central Alaska range, catching some of the Kuskokwim Valley. For the afternoon, that completely vanishes as conditions improve here over the central and east side there. Staying IFR here from the Yukon Delta up across Seward Peninsula, Kobuk Valley, central Brooks Range there into the North Slope and the Arctic coast, but VFR now down into the eastern North Gulf Coast, IFR for the Panhandle, and marginal VFR, most of Kodiak Island, with the IFR continuing for the Alaska Peninsula and areas of the eastern, all of the Aleutians actually, southern Bering Sea. And for Sunday morning, IFR here, Brooks Range on out to the Arctic coast. Some of that slipping down into the northern valleys there south of the Brooks Range, but not too bad. Marginal VFR, much of the central interior. Some IFR here over the southeast part of the state, especially into Prince William Sound. And a lot of IFR, of course, out over the Bering Sea. Some of that extending down to areas of the Aleutians. Kodiak Island, marginal VFR with possible IFR there around Sitkinak. And for the afternoon, much better conditions here, just some lingering areas of marginal VFR along the Alaska range there. But from the Brooks Range out to the Arctic coast, marginal for the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, and right along the southwest coast here, but VFR for the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, right on up across south central Alaska. A little bit of IFR for the eastern North Gulf Coast, especially around Yakutat, marginal for the Panhandle, and marginal VFR for the Fox Islands, but farther to the west, nothing but IFR there, and that extends right up to just south of Gamble. And for the passes for the Brooks Range, Saturday, tomorrow, IFR, both Anatuvik and Adigan, expect IFR flying conditions. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, and for Rainy, marginal VFR as well. Windy, IFR, becoming marginal VFR during the morning hours, and should become VFR before noontime through the afternoon. Isabel, VFR, and for Mentasta, VFR. Call it VFR for Tanita as well, and for Portage, IFR becoming marginal VFR. IFR for Chilkoot and White. Freezing levels here, cold upper low dropping down out of the Arctic here, bringing 2,000 feet down to St. Lawrence Island, but back up to 10 to 12,000 feet for the southern Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Around 8,000 feet or so here over the interior, except some 6,000 foot levels there along the eastern North Gulf Coast and over the Wrangell Mountains, and then sloping back up to 14,000 feet down toward the Queen Charlotte Islands and out over the far western Aleutians. Icing, moisture here with this upper trough coming down, southwest flow, so look for some considerable moderate or isolated moderate to considerable moderate icing here, mixed or rime here from the actually the Arctic Ocean right on down into the Kuskokwim Valley, and then with another system out here increasing icing threats for the western Aleutians. And from there, looking at the jet stream, here's that upper low I just spoke of here dropping down across the Seward Peninsula. Southwest flow, not all that strong at 33,000 feet. Northerlies, though, 65 to 70 knots here over the northern Bering Sea. And then southwest flow up to 75 knots here, cutting in across the northern Panhandle. And then 90 knot northerlies out here coming down across Dadak Island. And for 9,000 feet, low pressure here again over the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound. Northerly winds, north to northwest winds 30 to 40 knots there. To the west of that, southwest 35 here over the west and southwest interior. Otherwise pretty light out here over the Aleutians. And then much stronger winds, 60 knots here, blowing right across the southern southeast coast. 3,000 feet, strongest winds off to the southwest of the Panhandle there, but kind of diminishing as they reach the coastline. Light winds over the central and eastern interior, only 30 knots out of the north on the west side of this low. That's a little bit farther east at the lower elevation here than it was at 9 and 33,000 feet, but about 30 knots there and only 20 knots here. So a little breezy here along the west coast. Light winds over the Bering Sea, and then 40-knot winds with that next system way out there to the west. Turbulence, considerable moderate here along the northwest coast down into St. Lawrence, or not St. Lawrence Island, light to isolated moderate for St. Lawrence Island, but the Seward Peninsula considerable moderate, and also with the next system out here, Komodorski's to maybe shimmying at too, a little bumpy there with increasing southwest winds, and then here over the southern panhandle, look for considerable moderate turbulence there, surface to 6,000 feet.